hungry as fuck to learn and work. Dude, check this out. This guy bought a $50,000 burger. Man, that's crazy. The reason some of the greatest investors publish books about their principles is because they know if people make the right decisions, they get the right outcomes over a long enough time horizon. That might take years. That's why good shit takes time.
This is 60 minutes of best Alex Hormozi advice on YouTube. I invested dozens of hours to learn his ideas and it blew my mind. Enjoy!
Warren Buffett once said, the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. I like to think of yeses that I give to other people as withdrawals from my personal energy account. And I think of no's as deposits into my goal account. Here's how Warren Buffett told people to make goals. He said, write down your 25 top goals in life. He said, really think about it. Make them in order, 1 to 25. Then circle the top 5. Tear off everything underneath and throw it away, because those are the only things that matter. I learned $6 million lessons at my first job, working hot summers as an 18-year-old in a warehouse at a 5th generation fur coat dealer. And this business made it through 2 world wars, multiple recessions, and these lessons I have taken with me for life. The first lesson he ever taught me was how to deal with angry customers. This lady comes in and she is piss angry. She's like,
where's Johnny? He sold me this coat and this button came off. This is so ridiculous. I spent so much money on this coat.
Blah, blah, blah. She's just making a scene. I didn't go in the retail store that much because I looked like an 18-year-old and I wasn't gonna be selling any $25,000 coats. John, the owner of the store, I'm on the other side of the door so she can't see me, and he's walking towards me to turn out to go deal with her. As he's walking towards me, I see him roll his eyes, and then as he turns a corner, he goes right into character. Mrs. Johnson, that is ridiculous. I cannot believe that you had a coat that had a button that was missing. Who sold you that coat? I need to find them right now. We'll get rid of them. Did anyone see you with the coat without the button? We're gonna get to the bottom of this right now. All of a sudden, her whole tone changes. She started backpedaling. And she's like, I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, it was just a button. No, we need to get to the bottom of this. This is not acceptable. And she all of a sudden became calm as can be. She's like, you know what? I just want it to be fixed. If you could fix the coat. And he grabbed it from me. He's like, we're gonna handle this right now. He goes to the back. They fix the thing in 5 minutes. He hands it back to her and she's like, oh, John, you're always the best. Thank you so much for dealing with this. I'm sorry, I was a little bit over the top. I just, I've spent so much in the jacket. And he's like, as you should be. She walked out the door, he turned to me and he was like, and he said, there could only be one person in the angry boat. So whenever someone comes in the angry boat, what most people try and do is they try and downplay them. And so they say, well, it's not that big of a deal. And what happens is the person doesn't feel validated. The person who's upset then increases how angry they are because they want the person to validate why they're angry. And so what happens is they just keep getting angry and this person keeps trying to make them less angry. And then it just creates more and more of a discrepancy between the two people. Now the flip side is he got in the angry boat and so she had to get out of the angry boat. And so whenever you're dealing with an upset customer, you need to validate their anger. And in a real way, if something was messed up and you have very high standards for your business, the moment you say it's not a big deal, it means you're not actually taking responsibility. Even if their complaint is ridiculous, it still is your responsibility. So the first thing we have to understand is the psychology of the rich versus the psychology of the poor. The first encounter I had with super wealth, I remember I was working at Smoothie King. I was a blender tender. One of my buddies, he's in the back with his feet up. He's flipping through a magazine. He's like, dude, check this out. This guy bought a $50,000 burger. Man, that's crazy. Who would spend $50,000 on a burger? I thought about it more and more. If I go and get lunch, it costs me $12 for the burger, the fries, and the Coke, whatever. He had said it was some finance guy who had made like $100 million that year. If he made $100 million and he worked 2,000 hours, he made $50,000 an hour. I was making $7 an hour and my burger cost me 12 bucks. His $50,000 burger was cheaper for him for his amount of money that he was making than my $12 lunch was for me. That was a huge shift for me where I realized I'm playing this game wrong and I'm not empathizing with the rich because he's got to be thinking differently than I am to be able to afford a $50,000 burger. It also kind of makes sense for him. The second is how we create products that specifically serve rich people. They think differently and want different things. The best thing to do is study luxury brands. When you shop at a high-end store, they'll offer you champagne while you shop. You're gonna have somebody who's assigned to you the moment you walk in the door. What can I get for you? They can have and deliver that better experience because of the premium and luxury prices they charge. The longer you can delay when you need to be rewarded for the work that you do, the greater the outcome is. It's kind of like a plane taking off. The longer the runway, the bigger the plane. And so a lot of people can barely even get a bottle rocket off the ground because they have such a short attention span and such a need for immediate reward. If you feel like you're behind where you should be by now, if you feel like you're losing, if you're not sure it's gonna work, there's nothing wrong with you. That is entrepreneurship. You're on the right path. You're doing the right things. You're seeing the milestones along the way, but the milestones aren't parades. It's uncertainty. It's a sleepless nights. It's not knowing if you can make payroll. It's not even being sure that the 5 years you put into this idea is actually going to turn into something that you'll get credit for eventually. The biggest shift that I had internally during those harder times was that I am the output of my work. All of this effort is to create who I want to become. I get to use that as my reward every day rather than the approval of strangers. Sitting in uncertainty is the feeling of entrepreneurship. Capitalism is the only system where both people say thank you after an exchange. It means both parties are better. And if someone threatens you, that's different. That's just a form of robbery. But if I say, would you like this thing? And the other person says yes, and they give me money and I give them the thing, no harm was done. So in your business, if you have a one-time product, especially that's a little bit bigger in purchase, having little things that you can do, even if you didn't make money on them, and then you know that on average you get customers to buy 2 more products from you, it more than makes up for the effort and cost of time that you put into it. And this leads me to my final lesson. This fur coat dealer was able to withstand all of the PETA pressures and all of the, people being upset about animals, even though they wear leather and they eat meat every day. He was able to weather that for 5 generations because he never stopped doing the boring work. What they do has not changed fundamentally in years. All they did was get better and better and better at it. One of the things that I found through all of the portfolio companies that we work with, we own acquisition.com, to portfolio is $200 million a year. The difference between small business owners and the big business owners is that the big business owners do the same thing for a very long period of time. They do all the things that right now you probably know you should be doing but aren't in your business. They just do those. They just do all the basics every time, every day. And if you're like, man, but it's gonna take me time to set up a blog. It's gonna take me time to do email follow-up consistently. It's gonna take me time to create content. It's gonna take me time to build a sales team. Yeah, those are all the things that you probably know you should do. And they take time, which is why building a business that's big takes big time. But it also creates even bigger outcomes.
By the way, if you don't mind, hit the like button and follow my YouTube channel. There are more videos like this to come.
The fastest way to build a $10 million business is often not the fastest way to build a $100 million business. If you wanted to build a building that was 10 stories tall, you would start with a very different foundation. Now imagine you built a 10-story building and then said, okay, I want to build a 100-story building using the same foundation. You wouldn't be able to. But that's exactly what most entrepreneurs do when they're trying to scale and they wonder why they're stuck. It's because they built it wrong to begin with, because they were in the wrong opportunity vehicle. One of the big things that took me too long to learn is it's the size of the slice of the pie that matters, not the shape of the slice of the pie. They obsess about the shape of the slice rather than having a slice that's like this of a much bigger pie. The average IPO founder, when a company IPOs, owns 12.5% of the company they founded. Because the more people you make money, the more money you ultimately make. 20-year-olds stay poor because they start trying to earn rather than trying to learn. They did a survey of high school seniors. 52% believe that they will be a millionaire by 25. It's delusion. You can try and roll the dice and have a 1 in 1,000 shot of being a millionaire in 90 days. Or I can guarantee that you'll be a millionaire in a decade. Which would you prefer? And so I want to give you a quick example of 2 guys about the same age that took 2 very different directions in life. One of them went to another guy who was a little bit older, tried to learn the basics of editing video, used the buddy to get a job interview, and he'd learned enough that he could get a job offer. This particular company had a huge suite of other people who were significantly more advanced. Creative director who's done multiple big brands that he had the ability to learn from. He gets a $60,000 offer, which is a solid amount of money for editing with basically no experience, who then, rather than accept the job, he asked for $3,000 more. Because what he thought he had to do was earn rather than learn. The business is obviously not going to do that. What this guy does is he starts trying to negotiate back and forth, wheels and deals, and then eventually gets a job to be the lead head honcho of video editing at some small business that has no other mentors. There's no other people ahead of him. He took the right hook in his career 12 weeks after getting into it, and now they're the ones who are trying to extract as much from him rather than coming into a business where he's the small man on the totem pole and he can learn from everyone else, which would maximize for his long-term net worth. When you're early on, you learn this much and you think you know everything. And it's something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. The more you learn in a specific skill, the more you realize you don't know. Other guy, same idea, wanted to make money, but had zero skills because he's 17 years old. Of course he would have no skills. He decided, because he talked to a mentor who was older than him and said, hey, I think you'd have a proclivity for sales. I think you'd be good at it. He said, whatever the minimum quota is that they tell you to do an activity, double it. This was a sales role, and so he was required to do 100 calls a day. He did 200 calls a day. Why? Because he's not as skilled. So he has to do twice the work in order to get the same output as somebody who's more experienced. The mentor also said, go and spend as much time as you possibly can with the number one guy. Listen to everything he does and watch what he does. So that's what he did. And then he proved himself as number one on that bottom team. Then he got promoted. The youngest guy there worked his way up. What he realized was that no one was going to give him respect based on his age. He stacked his way up, then became one of the top closers in the company, where many people were experts at sales. And he was able to learn from them because he was hungry and he did extra hours. Now, at this point in his career, he could, right now, probably start $1 million a year business, or he could reinvest. And so he got another opportunity to work at a much more prestigious company, where he'll get even bigger and better experience. And guess what? He's gonna get paid less than he was making in his current job. Why would he do it? Because he's smart, not thinking short. If you go for the earning early, you stop the learning. And the moment you stop the learning is when you decide and you tell the universe that I have made enough. This is enough for me. Start at the bottom and learn every skill along the way.
The other great reason for working harder is that the harder you work, the more you realize what you used to think was hard work isn't even close to what you're capable of. Because if you want to know what the most dangerous money-making combo in the world, it's work ethic and time. Because once you realize just how much more work it takes to get from good to great, you realize you can only be great at a few things and you're forced to ignore the rest. It just takes work, shitloads and shitloads of work. And every time I dress it up or cut a corner, I get brutally reminded by life that the work just needs doing. So yes, this is your friendly reminder that it's okay to work on weekends. I think one of my favorite parables about work is that there was an art class. They split the class into two groups. And one group, they said, make the absolute best pot and turn in one pot. And the other group, they said, make as many pots as you possibly can. At the end of the semester, the team that had to make as many pots as humanly possible not only made more pots, but also ended up making better pots than the one that spent all of their time trying to make one. The work just needs doing, and no one's gonna do it for you.
Strategy is easy, execution is hard. It's the execution risk that is the much bigger risk for most businesses. If you deliver dry cleaning that is always clean, always, and always on time, you'll have an exceptional business. The strategy isn't complicated. It's the execution is where everyone fails. But this is the thing, is that the strategy is the new and exciting thing. People allocate tons of attention, tons of time to new strategies, new ideas, rather than making the obvious truth of, if I deliver everyone their clothes on time and they are always perfectly clean, this business will work. You don't need to have any fancy play to be successful. You just have to be willing to get the consistent yardage. People want clean clothes. People want them fast. People want good service. And if you execute on that for 10 years and you fill every hole in the bucket, your business grows by default because your competitors won't do that. This is where I say, like, business is not hard in that it is not complicated. It is hard because people cannot stay focused on the same thing for a long period of time. It's also because once people make a certain amount of money, if they only did it for the income, they're trying to find the next thing that's gonna make them more income rather than the mission of the business. We're so trained to say no to any kind of upsells that if you get someone to say no, but in so doing, get them to say yes, you actually click into their subconscious automated response. Most times when they say no to salesmen, they save money. You flip the script and you align it so that them saying no actually gets them to say yes for you and to the purchase. On the upsell that they had, they gave them a little piece of bait, and it was what I call sawdust. And so sawdust is anything in a business that is created in excess that you normally throw out. So a lot of famous things were actually made out of sawdust. IKEA pieces of furniture, they just glued together all the sawdust from lumber mills. Whey protein used to get scraped off the bottom of dairy centers because it was waste product, and now it's one of the most expensive products sold from dairy. What he did was he took the scraps from all the coats that they would make in the back. They made tiny little things that were made of fur. So think like little purses, little earmuffs. And so they said anybody who would turn in their coat would get this as a bonus. They gave away something that cost them nothing, that people still perceive value, as bait to get people to come in and actually take the upsell. What's even more, when people did come to turn the thing in, they would actually say, well, you want to store that too, right? And they would say yes. And then they would charge them for that. Even though they got the product for free, the storage didn't come free. One of my favorite quotes from B.F. Skinner, who was a behavior psychologist from way back in the day, was, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. He said, well, if you bleed it out enough and you starve it and you leave it in the sun and you put the water right in front of its mouth, he's like, I can veritably guarantee that I can make it drink. And so if you were to think about yourself as that horse, then it's like, okay, well, what is the equivalent of the bloodletting, the dehydration, the starving that you can put yourself into to get the behavior you want? So starving has a negative connotation, but we can also starve out the negative things in your life. Like you can starve the alcohol, you can starve the friends. And I think the easiest way to do that is to get out of the environment you're in. I think this was in Atomic Habits. In Vietnam, I think it was like 10% of troops or something were taking heroin when they were over there in the 70s. And they thought there was going to be this massive problem when they came back to the States. But when they came back to the States, almost no one continued the heroin habit. And so going from Vietnam, where you're doing heroin, to the US, where you're not taking heroin, had a 90% success rate, whereas the inverse is true of recovery centers in the United States today. People go there and 90% of them relapse when they go back home. And so the difference is that people were doing heroin in a different environment, and then they changed their environment, and then they never went back to the environment that they did heroin in. I'll tell you the quick story of Warren Buffett and Ben Graham. Ben Graham was the GOAT back in the day for investing. Warren Buffett was just a kid out of Columbia and wanted to go learn investing. And he offered to work for Graham for free. Graham said, "You're getting the better end of the deal." The actual answer was, "You're overpriced." So free was too expensive for Graham because Graham knew that he was gonna have to invest more in getting Warren good enough to actually work for him. And so right now, these customers, and they are very much customers because they are exchanging something for your service. They're exchanging their time and their effort and some stuff later that you're gonna have them do. The reason that someone tells you they don't wanna work with you, even for free, is because there are hidden costs associated with whatever thing you sell. If you figure out what all those hidden costs are, you can eliminate those hidden costs and then be able to charge significantly more for your solution later compared to the other people who charge for it and still include those hidden costs. There are three paths that every entrepreneur eventually has to take. You have the path of the pure artist, the path of the pure entrepreneur, and then a hybrid path. So the path of the artist is the person who loves doing the thing. Now your art form might be plumbing, your art form might be carpentry, coding software, making media, and making wallets. You have something that you enjoy doing and you do it well. The second path on the extreme is that you love business. Business is your art form, and it doesn't really matter what business you're in. I love working with different portfolio companies, whether it's solar sales, mortgage sales, physical products, software, service businesses, brick and mortar chains. Like we have all of those in our portfolio, and I love growing them all. And that's because the art for me is the actual business itself. The third path is a hybrid path, and each of these paths can go all the way to the max limit here. So an example is Tobias Lutka, who is the founder of Shopify. And so he loves building Shopify pages, and he loves the coding and he loves the product. And so what he did was he found somebody else and have them build the business around him while he stayed focused on the main thing that he loved the most. The key here is that there is no right path. It's more about the path that works best for you during the season you're in, because guess what? You can also change paths later.
Steve Jobs said, "People think focus means saying yes to the thing you've got to focus on, but that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to 100 other good ideas that are out there. You have to pick carefully." I'm actually as proud of the things we haven't done as the things I have done, because most people don't achieve the success they want because they either don't do the thing that matters most enough times, they don't do it for long enough, or they're doing the wrong thing altogether. You have to let other people's dream of you die so that your dream can live, because there's only so much of you to go around. Everybody else is trying to get you to be the version of you that best serves them, including your family. I don't think it's a malicious intention, but they have goals for you that are probably not your goals for you. And somebody's goals have to die. And where most of them die is right in the middle, which is you try and do theirs and you try and do yours and you actually accomplish neither. So you might as well do 100% yours, do none of theirs, and then actually achieve the long-term goal, which they probably have, is that you live a happy and successful life. You only get there by saying no in the short term to get the long yes. The most valuable skill that you can have in order is product first, then marketing, then sales. And so right now, if you know how to sell, it's because you don't know how to market, you know how to build product. If you know how to market, then you can sell lots of stuff, but you're only gonna sell it once because the product's usually not that good. If you know how to sell product, you'll get more promotion from your customers than anything else, and that is ultimately what scales the enterprise. Marketing can scale anything to a point, and then what happens is the marginal cost of getting the next customer continues to get up and up. And if you don't get word of mouth referrals from customers who use your product, then eventually it becomes untenable and your company will plateau. And so the key to building a very, very big thing that lasts for a very long time is having an exceptional product. And you know what? If you just sell shit, you can make money. If you market shit well, you can make even more money. And what happens for most entrepreneurs is they actually go in that direction. They just learn how to sell shit because that's the easiest skill to learn. You can learn it in a couple weeks. Learn how to market takes a little longer. You learn how to write copy. It's really just translating the persuasion of sales into different types of media and selling to many people at once. And so the highest leverage thing you can do
do is make an exceptional product that other people want to promote for you. I think one of the difficulties, especially when you're younger, is you've got your friends, you got your family, and especially if they're all poor, then they have terrible views around money. They might not approve of all the stuff you're learning on the internet and trying to try these new things out. And the real is like, you're gonna fail a lot. And they're gonna say, see, told you so. And the tough part is they're gonna be right most of the time. Except it's one of those things where it's 99% right, but 100% wrong. Is that anybody who bets against you for this thing being the thing is usually gonna be right. It's just like a parent who says, you're gonna break up with this person, you're gonna break up with this person, you're gonna break up with this person. But they're right with every single person you ever date, except for the person you marry. And then they're 100% wrong. And if you have the perspective of listening to that, it can be incredibly disheartening. And so number one is, I want you to go on a different information diet. So you need to be able to ignore all the stuff that they're giving you, because like the best way to stay poor is to listen to poor people about how to get rich. You're already taking great steps by like watching content, doing this stuff. Just keep doing more of that. And I'm sure your girl, whoever you have your baby with, that's your world. Like anybody who's not trying to build Avante 2.0 with you doesn't deserve your time. Because like right now you have a wallet of money and you got a wallet of minutes. And like every single person you're choosing to pay minutes to or pay dollars to has to earn their keep. And earning their keep in this season of your life is them helping you get to where you want to go. Cut out the people who are taking your time. Easy way to see this is like, if the people in your life don't have bigger dreams for you than you do, ignore all of their advice. Let's just ignore them entirely. And I know that that's simple to say and hard to do, but you're in a hard situation. And I think the question is whether you can be harder than your circumstances right now. And you have to be to get out of this. I think that you would be better served actually doing you. And that comes with all the weirdness that you are. Because I've met some of you. Y'all are weird as fuck. And if you stop pretending to be this identity that you wrap into the starter kit of whatever Instagram influencer you're trying to copy, and you just were you, what happens is your unique individual personalities are like weirdness, because everybody had different parents. Everybody was born in different cities. Everyone has unique things. Like your dad might have been a mechanic. You might know a bunch of shit about cars. And if you bring that up, all of a sudden people look at what they expect from the real estate starter kit. And then all of a sudden, if you've got these points over here and you become interesting and people lean in, they pay attention because you don't match the mold. And so people are like, man, your stuff's always so different and so original or whatever. And it's really easy to be original if you're just not looking at everyone else's shit. The act of consuming everyone else's stuff, what ends up happening is that those thoughts become top of mind for you and you become another Mickey Mouse, another Instagram influencer starter kit. They've got the watch, the car, 100% hustle, 0% grind. If other people copy you, it's a good sign because it means that what you're doing is working and most people aren't original. If you copy them, what it means is that you accept the position of second place. You accept that they are inherently first. You literally say, you are better than me at this. And if you claim to be the best at whatever it is that you're trying to do, or at least that you're trying to be the best, you copying their identity, their look, their feel, their brand means that you are accepting to lose. You will never win because you aren't going to beat them at being. Doesn't matter what business you have. If you want to make lots of money, sell more expensive stuff. There's no strategic benefit to being the second cheapest person in the marketplace, but there is for being the most expensive. There's only one strategic benefit to being the lowest cost person in the marketplace, which means that you went in with that strategy and you built an entire business around operational efficiency, automation, and you built the whole strategy of the business on being able to provide the same thing for less. If you did not do that and are simply trying to do the same business as other people and compete on price, you will lose. You will have no profit left over and you will get priced to the point of break even and you will just run a nonprofit. Thank you. If I were giving you a Ferrari, brand new, and I said, it's 10 grand, and I'm walking up to people on the street, and they believed that I was actually gonna give them the Ferrari, how hard do you think it would be for them to come up with the 10 grand? What would they do? They would call their friends, they'd call their family, they would take out of their credit cards, they'd take a loan. Why? Because they know it's worth more than 10 grand. Whenever you are selling something expensive, the reason someone is not buying it is simply because they do not understand the value. Because if they understand the value and they believe that you're giving them a Ferrari, they will find a way to get the money. I want to banish this whole concept of like, they can't afford it. Everyone can afford it if they believe the value is there. Now, quick story, client in our software company, Alan, who was a real estate agency. So we worked with agency owners in that business. And so this guy was continually struggling. Like he couldn't really ever break through there and he was always selling new people and they would always churn out the back, whatever. It took me 6 months of like just battering him over the head with this, publicly embarrassing him to finally get him to change his behavior. And I was like, you're not that good. Like it's not some marketing hack, it's not some sales hack. I was like, you're just not that good. I was like, you sell to realtors. He was like, yeah. I was like, have you ever been a realtor? He was like, no. Then you have no idea what they go through. And what your marketing looks like and what your sales process looks like is the same as every other fucking person trying to sell realtors. Promise you, quit your terrible agency, go take the 12 weeks, pass the test, and actually be a realtor. Sell some fucking houses using your marketing skills that you claim to sell. In the first month of him doing this, he was like, oh shit, he's like, these leads aren't as good as I thought they were. I was like, no shit. That's why no one wanted to keep paying you. But you know what he did over the next 12 months? He got better and better and better at it. And here's the crazy thing. 12 months later, he actually still a realtor and he's making more money because he actually got good at it. But here's the thing. If he had kept trying to look like everybody else, he would have been Mickey Mousing until he kept trying some new thing or some new hack, but he just didn't confront the work. And you know what happens now? Is that if he actually did want to go back to the agency thing and actually did want to help realtors, he would have the context to do it. And it would make him unique because so many other people are just like him pretending to model their Instagram page after the same thing that the other influencer they're looking up to does, rather than being like, I wanted to figure out real estate. Most people don't do that. They just look what everyone else is doing, do the same thing, water it down, and they literally blend in like everyone else. And they wonder why they don't win. You've heard me say replicate before you iterate, right? That comes to skills. If you want to learn how to sell, hide next to the guy who's making calls. You want to learn how to knock on doors? Walk with the guy who's the best guy on the team who knocks doors, right? You duplicate the skill so you know you can do it. That's different than replicating a story and replicating an identity. I've seen like Hormozify and Hormozi style content and Hormozi style edits. It's not about the captions. It's about the content. What they can copy is the way it looks and feels and sounds. So what they can't copy is the story behind it. Fix the story and the brand will take care of itself if you tell the story that's true. And so if you don't have the story to tell, then do the shit that's worth doing that no one else is willing to do. And then you'll have the story that will make you a one-of-one. So many people are believing a lie. They have to be happy, they have to have purpose, passion for what they're doing in order to get out of their situation. They think that they are poor because they don't have passion. That is false. You are poor because you're not doing the activities that make you rich. And you can fuel those activities whatever way you damn well please. And so if you are somebody who is more motivated by the dark side, then lean into the dark side. Unlike the saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, the equal opposite of that is the road to heaven is paved with bad intentions. You can do good shit with bad motivation. And when I say bad, I mean negative experiences, pain, anger, etc. I still have tons of motivation from that side. You can use that negative fuel, hit it on speed dial every time you're confronted with that thing that you don't want to do. You push through it, and what happens, you do that enough times, you start to get good at the thing. You start seeing the result of work that has compounded and start to see a purpose or start to see a bigger vision. The big vision for Alex's life until maybe 4 years ago was don't be broke. What was your mission with Gym One? My mission was to stop being poor. There are elements of shit that I do that I absolutely love, but there is tons of shit that I do every day that I fucking hate. I just don't hate it more than I hate the alternative. And the richest people in the world, they all say it's not about the money. Because if it's about the money, you stop the moment you have enough. The people who are the wealthiest in the world have the three things in common. They have the big goal, they have massive fears about never being enough, and then they have impulse control to stay on goal. These are 17 conversations that made me millions in my 20s. Number one, I was going back and forth between quitting my job and starting a gym or starting my entrepreneurial journey. Another early mentor, he sat me down and said, man, I've been listening to you waffle for months now. He said, at some point, you're not gonna know anymore. You just have to jump. He said it in a way that made me feel like a pansy. I realized I didn't need more information. I'd already done all of the research. I just needed to decide. The definition of decision comes from the Latin decadere, which basically means to cut off or kill off. The question was, which future was I deciding to kill off? Was it the future that I was in currently that I didn't like anymore? Or was it the future that I had the potential to accomplish the dreams that I had? Number two, very beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, I didn't know how to sell anything. And a mentor just said, do you want to know the secret to sales? I leaned in. I was like, yes, please. I had my notepad out. And he said, the secret to sales is making an offer so good people feel stupid saying no. And that obviously became the subtitle of my $100 million offers book. I kept thinking that I had to learn how to try and manipulate and going through sales scripts and building rapport. And sure, some of those skills are useful to have when it's so much easier to just find things that people really want. Chick-fil-A doesn't need to sell you on chicken sandwiches. They just have amazing chicken sandwiches and people go buy them. So I think one of the hardest things as an entrepreneur or just as an individual is shifting how you define winning for yourself. And it's easy to say it and say, of course, I'm in the game, I'm winning. It's much harder to actually believe that. And so it's easy to make the Instagram clip, but it's hard to live it. And what's been interesting for me is that I feel like it's unlocked a different level of work ethic. I thought that the fear of the gun to your head was still the strongest motivator, and it is in the short term. But if you need to run a marathon, then you need to have something that is going to sustain for a longer period of time. Like punishment is always stronger in the short term, reward is always longer in the long term. And so we have to redefine how we reward ourselves for the work we do. And so since I don't believe in legacy and I don't believe that in 5,000 years people are gonna remember who I am, I had to make winning working as hard as I could on something. How do you measure working as hard as you can? Tough. I think about a future version of myself who has all the context of my current situation, my skills, the information available to me, the resources I have. And that man, that future man, knows what perfect work looks like, which is how much effort can I put into this thing and not be distracted and continue to chisel away at this project. It's very hard because it means there's very few projects that I can do if I have that level of work as my new standard. And so if that level of work is the standard and that is what winning is, then I can only do it for a few things. There's just a lot of things I'm not going to be able to do, which is sad in some ways, but I think a necessary trade-off because like we have one human life. The point of why I hate the concept of no one can outwork me is that there are many ways to win the game. If you were to think about an amazing goal as a dragon to be slain, if you are familiar with video games in any way, when you create like a war party, you have a group of people that are gonna go on a quest. You don't just have 10 paladins or guys who just have shields and swords. So you've got a healer, a mage that's really good at damage but can't take a lot of damage. Then you've got a paladin who can't hit as hard, but he can take a lot of shots. You find people who have complementary skills. If you're playing football, you don't have 10 running backs. The entrepreneur really should be the coach of the team. It's about organizing the pieces and how well they play together that ultimately determines how good the team is. Like how many times have you seen the team with the all-star that has the poor supporting cast get beat by the overall better team? It happens all the time. A lot of entrepreneurs, as I see them, are trying to play the game like they're the star player and they want to score all the points, but they lose to Apple because Apple's got a team. We celebrate a specific action like work when it's really just saying, oh look, there's a paladin who can take a lot of hits. Cool. That's not the only thing that's required to win. I think what is more valuable is to know what are each of the roles that exist within the business, A. B, is there one of these that you map to based on your characteristics and skill sets? And then C, what is my eventual evolution through entrepreneurship? What would players do if they had no coach or leader? And then what would they do if they had the best coach and best leader? The delta between those two is the value of the coach, the value of the CEO. The CEO needs to have the highest return on time out of anyone in the organization because they need to always be solving the next problem. As long as when they replace their time, the activities they do with the new stuff builds the business even more, then that trade will always work. You gotta go slow to go fast. He kept repeating it to me over and over and over again. You only unlock the compounding, which later on grows significantly faster than the erratic activity of small thing here, new thing here, than just doing the same thing for an extended period of time. And so what feels slow in the micro looks fast in the macro when you look at the trajectory over a long period of time. But what looks really fast in the micro is usually really slow in the macro because people can never get that compounding start harnessing because they're always starting back over at ground zero. Whenever you change something, the one cost is guaranteed is that change will have to get paid for. And what isn't guaranteed is that it's gonna work. You know you have this fixed cost, which is how you should see it, is that whenever you change something, you have to pay a price. One of my early mentors told me about flyers. I thought I needed to go put a lot of flyers out to get business. Put out 300 flyers. So I called the mentor back up and I was like, hey, this didn't work. And he's like, what was your test size? What do you mean by test size? And I just put out 300 total. And he just laughed. 300? Like, you're not gonna do anything with 300. He's like, we test with 5,000 and then we do 5,000 a day after that.
5,000 a day?
150,000 flyers a month. I might have been doing the right thing all along, but I was just doing far too little of it. And at that point, I decided that whenever someone gave me advice, I wouldn't let the volume of activity to be the reason it failed. But I just hadn't done enough of them or I hadn't done them long enough. I see so many smaller, younger entrepreneurs who do something for too short, too little time, not enough volume, that they might have been doing the right thing. They just didn't wait long enough or they didn't do enough of it. Fat pitches in life don't come very often. When it gets easy is when you need to go hard. Otherwise, there's someone who's 10 times bigger than you who's gonna take everything you have and not even think twice about it. That was literally fueled by that one conversation. If you're like, wait, how are you doing 300,000 or 400,000 a month, taking home 300? I had like no employees and I was making it all myself. You do have one of those opportunities that comes up in your life when things start working really well. That's when a lot of people ease off the gas. That's when they go easy. When it gets easy is when you go hard because you don't have that many fat pitches in a lifetime. You might get 2 or 3 and you just gotta crack the shit out of it when it comes and expect that you're going to sacrifice some short term for some long term later. Number 8, the same event, a different guy came up to me. He said, you're like doubling every month with this current thing. Like, why do you want to start a supplement business? What if you just spent 3 times as much on marketing and didn't start a supplement business? I didn't start the supplement business. I actually delayed it for 18 months. In the next 3 months, we tripled the ad spend and went from 400 to 780, from 780 to $1 million, from $1 million to $2 million, just the next 6 months because of that piece of advice. And I think the underlying part of that advice is that when something is going well, oftentimes entrepreneurs think, great, I won, how can I get another win? But the real win is just doing 10 times more of that thing. The hardest part is getting product market fit. It's getting people to want to buy the thing. Once you have that, you don't need to innovate that anymore. All your innovation has to go through how can we do more volume. Number 12, this was one of the first billionaires that I ever met. I'd been stuck at 30 to 40 million for like 3 years. So there was a lot of learning that I was trying to do in this period to break through that wall. I was telling him all these things that I was doing to try and grow my business. And he just laughed. He said, it's not about you. It's about everybody else. And what he meant by that wasn't like me versus customers or anything like that. He was like, all you've been telling me is what you're going to do. You need to have a stable of stallions. You need to give people a slice of the pie and let them get rich too. And up to that point, I had hoarded everything. I was like, you know what got me from $100 million top line to $500 million top line? Doing less and getting really smart people to help me out and giving them a big slice. It's about talent. It's about people. You have to get other people who can make decisions on your behalf, and you feel not only that they were as good as your decisions, but even better. Because in the beginning, you're a jack of all trades, master of none, but you need to have mastery in every department of the business in order for it to scale. And you can either see that as I have to learn everything, or the faster way, which is I can go buy it through other people who've already given 10 years. Or if I can get 10 people who've all spent 20 years in their respective departments, I basically have 200 years of experience. And if every person in the organization has learned everything from you, then it's only one brain and one lifetime. That is the limit of the organization. That thing is what got us past the 30 to 40 million. It is arrogant to believe that you are going to outcompete other people who are fully focused on one thing when you are split on 5. Ben Francis started Gymshark when he was 17, and now he's 28 or 29. He's got $1 billion thing. Could he have tasted more stuff? Sure, he tasted from like 14 to 17, right? But then when he started that, he's been doing it for 10 or 11 years now. And now he's $1 billion thing. The work needs doing, and you just need to decide when you want to start the compounding clock in your favor, which means how long can I commit to this thing? And so I would say, once you've had a little bit of your entrepreneurial licks as fast as you can to learn those lessons, you have to think, what need to believe is there that I do not think will change over an extended time horizon? And then serve that. Every day, all you do is you look at how to do better and how to do more of it. And it's gonna kill you inside because you like doing new shit. And that's what was positively reinforced your entire life as an entrepreneur in the beginning. And then you have to unlearn that lesson, because that's what it takes to get big, is you do the same thing and you just do it that much better than everyone else. And that takes time. Fame has pros and cons. There are cons, but I believe that there are more pros than cons. Are there things that are inconvenient now? Absolutely. You get stopped every time you go out to dinner, like you get disrupted. It's harder to be like private in public. If you have a bad day, you can't do it because someone says hi and it's the one time they're gonna see you. There are things that are cons, but the pros outweigh the cons. You get amazing people who will come and want to work with you. You get amazing teammates who otherwise would never know you exist, who also have the same mission, have the same values, and it creates significantly more alignment and real world value in terms of economic value, how much money you make by having people inbound coming towards you. This one conversation I had changed my life. He was telling somebody who had a lot of real estate experience, if you were to put a circle on this table, what percentage of your brain knows real estate? And he was like, I guess 85%. Okay, what percentage of your brain knows stocks and stuff? He's like, oh, 10 or 15%. He's like, that is your new capital allocation parameter. 85% of your net worth should be in real estate, 15% should be in stocks. And it was so simple for me. I know business. And so what do I invest in now? Only businesses. Only risky if you don't know what you're doing. I can write a $5 or $10 million check and be fine if I know if it's a business, because I understand. I know what pitfalls are gonna come up. Like, I get it. Sticking with that just forever made my life simpler, because now when deals come to us, I'm like, that's just not in my wheel. And I can just immediately say no. So the amount of time and effort and lawyer calls and conversations that saved me has paid so many dividends. And now our investing doing significantly better because it's what I know. An exceptional product is a quadratic relationship with your audience. Good marketing or good sales is a linear relationship. If you make an exceptional product, something that's so unbelievable that people cannot help themselves but tell other people about it. And one person buys the product and they tell 2, 2 tell 4, 4 tell 8. How do I do that? You work on it and you keep working on it, and you don't make new products until the first one's right. And if you're like, that might take years, that's why good shit takes time. $100 million offers. That book continues to sell more copies every month with zero advertising dollars. Actually, less work in the long run to build a better thing than it is to build a shitty thing and then have to spend the rest of your time marketing and selling it. You want to have leverage in every aspect of your business, and the product is the strongest. So there was a friend of mine who had a podcast that blew up, and very quickly he had millions of downloads, and his business started to grow. It skyrocketed. And it was almost 100% from people who were listening to his podcast. And what happened was, he made an ask during one of his podcasts, he made a lot of money. He thought, when I make an ask, I make more money. And so what I'll do is I'll just make more asks. He learned the wrong lesson. And so he did make more asks, and he then made a little bit more money, and then he continued to make less and less and less until eventually his listenership dropped and dropped and dropped because he had lost the goodwill of his audience. The key point I'm gonna talk about today is mastering the give to ask ratio. How much to give versus how much to ask. Gary Vee popularized the whole concept jab, 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 right hook, which is the idea of giving, 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 and then asking. Not take, but ask. The good news is this ratio has been incredibly well studied. Why? Because the biggest media companies in the world want to be able to ask on their platforms as much as humanly possible without losing viewership, listenership, audience. On television, for every 47 minutes of content, there's 13 minutes of advertising. If you look on Facebook, every 4 posts, there's 1 ad. It's almost like a 3-to-1 ratio between how many ads there are and how much content there is. Instead of give, ask, I'd like to just change it to give until they ask you. And that's when you know your audience is ready for you to make an offer. And my personal preference here is actually to give in public and sell in private. Whenever you give, you deposit goodwill into the audience. If you give someone something first, they're far more likely to comply with your request later. When someone helps us, we feel indebted to them and we want to help them back, right? That's how society works. But with media, we can do that at scale. You can gain goodwill and provide value to millions of people at once, but then it all funnels back to one person. And that's why it's so powerful. And it's free. Because I am in the game of making money. My goal is to always have significantly less supply than I have demand. And I always want to keep that demand because that is the holy grail of what you want, which is far more people who want to do business with you than you have capacity to do so. The strongest driver of pricing power and profits is supply and demand. When we make content, what we're actually doing is artificially shifting the demand curve in our favor. And the other side of this is that if you are the business owner, you control supply. And so you can inflate your demand and at the same time cut your supply. And when you have that happen, price goes through the roof, and so do your profits. Kobe Bryant was famous for doing this, where he would do 2 practices a day.
My name is Kobe Bryant, 17 years old. Fridays and Saturdays, I would go in my rec room with my basketball and basically dribble myself to sleep. I think that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. Because during those lonely hours in the rec room, I discovered the hunger, the motivation, and the desire to be the best possible basketball player that I could be.
And he thought, if everybody else does 1 practice a day, if I do 2 a day, I will get better faster. And in the beginning, the difference is not that noticeable. But after 5 years, and then 10 years, he becomes unbeatable. Whether you're trying to get into law, or you're trying to get into accounting, or you're trying to get into sales, or you're trying to get into marketing, whatever the core activity that you do, making videos, making ads, writing sales pages, actually doing sales calls, whatever it is, if you do 2 times or 4 times the volume, you will get better, faster, and pay down your ignorance debt at a faster rate that compounds. He has compounded the number of hours in the trenches learning the thing. Respect is always earned, and the younger you are, the more you have to earn it. And you can either resent the world for not giving you respect that you do not deserve, or you can go get it. Hustle across age, gender, culture is always respected. Your ability to provide value will compound with time, especially as you start pairing skills. If you think about Jay-Z in the beginning of his career, the first thing he did was he learned how to rap.
Jay-Z's embarrassing, your time master, rigor the rhyme master, look at the last Jay-Z rhyme, so you can say I'm superb, they line.
And then he started learning how to promote, another skill, significantly more money. And then after that, he figured out how to do a record label and distribute, even more money. And then after that, he figured out how to recruit other artists and get them signed on his label, even more money. And so what happens is that he still needs these early skill sets. Even though he didn't monetize them hard there, he monetized them big later. Skills will compound. If you have 1 + 1 + 1, it doesn't equal 3 when it comes to skills. If you are good at math, cool. If you learn bookkeeping, a little bit more. If you learn how to become an accountant, even more. If you start understanding taxes and insurance, all of a sudden you're a CFO. Now, if you start understanding M&A and mergers, entity structures, all of a sudden you're not only a CFO, you're a rainmaker. You're somebody who can bring in deals, execute deals, etc. The earning potential difference between somebody who's an accountant and a rainmaker is tens of millions of dollars per year. So one of my heroes, Warren Buffett, he finished top of his class at Columbia Business School. Somebody who finished his top of their class at Columbia can get a job paying very well in most places. But guess what he did? He asked Ben Graham to let him work at his investment firm for free. Ben Graham was one of the goats of investing at the time when Warren Buffett was just a kid coming out of college.
The chance to study under him, it shaped my professional life.
And guess what Ben Graham said to him when he asked him to work for him? He said, "You're overpriced." Ben Graham knew, just as Warren Buffett knew, that even though he was working for free, it was going to cost Ben Graham more to deliver all of the skills and all of the things that he would need to be successful than the monetary compensation. But because Warren Buffett is smart, he realized that he was in a season of learning and not earning yet. He was willing to invest, as one of the greatest investors of all time, in the thing that was most important and valuable to him at the time, himself. And he did it for free. Number 4, decide how much you're going to invest first before you spend money. Prioritization comes from taking, it's literally prior, it comes first, right? It's that you take the money off the top and you say, this money has been prioritized for my learning, my education. And then whatever you have left, that you can spend. All that money, that account, you can let it stockpile up, and then you see something that you want to learn and then deploy the capital. Not, what do I have left at the end of the month, can I afford it? You've got this big pile of gold over here that every month you plow into, and then when you see the opportunity, you make the decision, you pull the trigger. Number 7, get takeout, don't cook your food. Very contrarian, I know. As soon as you make more than $15 an hour, it makes more sense for you to work that day, get the takeout food, and get the time back. It makes more sense financially. Most people can, like, if you're not being a weirdo, you can eat out for 10 bucks-ish a meal, and you eat out twice a day, it's 20 bucks a day, $600 a month. Maybe if you went to the grocery store, it'd be what, 100 bucks a week versus $150 a week? Is the net $50 a week? Can you not make that up for the meal prep, going to the grocery store, cutting, cooking, cleaning? You're saving the pennies rather than investing in the mega millions, which is you. Check your account every single morning. Until I started doing it, I stayed poor. I didn't want to look at my bank account because it would hurt my feelings. Seriously, I would look at it and I would just feel poor. But that's okay. You have to confront reality in order to change it. Man, money's pouring out of this thing left and right. Once I got a pulse on it, I knew Tuesdays is when I pay for this. Thursdays is when I pay for this. It's a habit that once you learn it, it's hard to forget. And I promise you, just like losing weight, if you get someone to measure the weight every day, get someone to measure the bank account every day, it'll improve. The reason some of the greatest investors publish books about their principles is because they know if people make the right decisions, they get the right outcomes over a long enough time horizon. If you can't buy it twice, don't buy it once. And realistically, probably 3, 4, 5, 6 times. When I got into investing, I used to think, oh, I'm gonna put like a third into this. And they were like, dude, no, your biggest allocation might be 10%. Oh, if you can't buy twice, don't buy once. If a deal feels like a grand slam, get a second opinion. Whenever I'm looking at something and something looks amazing, I automatically send it to other people. I must not be seeing something like, I need someone else's eyes on this. It's a good, easy decision-making rule for yourself for investing. If you don't know how you can lose money, don't do it until you do. There's always a way to lose money in the deal. And you not only want to find a way to lose money, but you want to find all the ways you can lose money in the deal, right? We're always controlling for the unknown or the unknowable. We want to minimize that to the highest degree possible. So if you don't know how you can lose money, don't do the deal until you do. If it's complicated, pass. If it feels above your head, it probably is. People want to feel fancy. They want to get into the room. They want to do these deals. But if you don't get it, you're going to get fucked. If you have complete understanding of something, the risk goes down because you understand the variables. If you're barely catching on, you might as well be gambling, which is not the way to invest. If someone's non-responsive, no deal. Communication is one of the most important things when you're doing any kind of business in general. And I judge someone very quickly on how meticulous they are in their responses and how quick they are to respond in general. Now, if someone says, hey, I received your email, I'll get back to you in 2 days, and then they get back to me in 2 days, that's fine. It's about expectation setting and expectation meeting. I expect, especially in this process where I'm just getting to know you, what you say is going to happen is going to happen. It's one of the easiest ways to build a reputation is do what you're gonna say what you're gonna do. And if someone's not doing that with you, don't do the deal. If it doesn't build your reputation, don't do it. No neutral moves. Your brand, personally, your reputation is the one thing that you take with you forever. And you absolutely can lose it, and it can be irreparably damaged. I'd only do it if it builds my reputation. When we do that, we continue to reinvest in our reputation, in our personal brand, which gives us compounding returns over our entire lifespan in terms of relationships, in terms of literally financial returns, in all other aspects of life. Only invest if it builds your reputation. If it doesn't build, don't do it. If it's the same thing you've always done well with, do more of it. We as humans or entrepreneurs, we like having variety. The thing is that a lot of investing, a lot of compounding comes from doing more of the same thing. So it's like, hey man, I've done 3 hard money loans and they've all been awesome. It's like, well then you should probably consider doing a 4th rather than starting to get into crypto day trading. What happens is you start to build your own track record. And so you can start looking back over your shoulder and be like, okay, let's look at all the things that I've done. These have been the things that have worked well. Maybe I'm better at this stuff. And so that's the idea. Once you find something that you're starting to get good at, do more of it. Because the thing is that your luck will improve the more you do. Ask stupid questions, define terms, draw pictures, see examples, and if you can't draw it back, you don't get it. I start every single call when somebody's gonna bring me something, I'll be like, pretend I'm a golden retriever that doesn't speak English. Walk me through this. There's no advantage to somebody thinking you know more than you do. None. But there is advantages to you knowing more than they think you do. Always play the fool. Rich people will always pay for speed. The easiest way to appeal to the rich is just do the same thing in half the time. Whatever the service is, if it's dry cleaning, return it by end of day. If you only have a phone number, be the person that can accept anything. If they email you, shoot you a text,
if they WhatsApp you, if they phone call, you can accept anything because you've made it convenient. They just want it to be effortless. The third is if we know what products and services they want, how to price those things appropriately. When you solve rich people problems, you get to charge rich people prices. When you deal with rich people, you have unlimited upside, which is why they are better customers. There's 5 things I want to talk about from the customer's perspective, because if you increase the quality of your customers, you increase the quality of your business. Number 1, when you charge more money for your products or services, you get an increased emotional investment. If you have a very low cost item, people won't even give it the time of day. And so when you raise the price, you raise their emotional investment, and in a real way, you actually increase the likelihood that they get results. The second way that it'll help your customers is that it will increase their perceived value. There was a research study where they had 3 bottles of wine. They had a cheap wine, a mid-price wine, and an expensive wine. They had people try them out, and they had them rank them based on what they thought. People said, oh, I think the most expensive wine's the best, the middle price is the middle, and the cheapest wine was the worst. And that's not that surprising, except when the researchers explained that all 3 wines were the same. When you raise your prices, a more expensive thing is perceived in real terms as more valuable, even if the actual core product is the same. The third is results for your customers. If you increase their emotional investment, you increase their perceived value, what ends up happening? They actually do get better results. When they sign up for the gym for personal training versus a $10 a month thing, they get better results. The fourth thing that happens when you raise your prices, you actually attract less demanding customers. Have you ever seen this meme? The customer says, well, what exactly am I gonna be getting for $50? And then it has the rich customer who's like, wire sent, let me know what next steps are. Anybody who's ever been in client services can attest to this. The higher the price tag, the more expensive the contract, the fewer payment plans you have to set up, the easier the customer is to deal with. Part of the reason that a $50 person is saying, well, what exactly am I be getting? If somebody's got $100 in their bank account, you're asking for 50% of their net worth. Just because someone's willing to pay you doesn't mean that you should take it. The fifth benefit that your customers will get as a result of raising your prices is that you actually have more money you can deliver on your promises for. So imagine you've got a hard cost thing that costs $5 and you charge $8. Well, you only have $3 left to run the rest of your business, provide service. You don't have a lot of room there. Now imagine you charge $50 for that same $5 thing. You have $45 that you can now use to deliver 2, 3, 4 times the value. The customer gets a better experience. You can reinvest in your product. You can attract higher level talent to your business. If you have no margin, the best people aren't gonna work for you. They're gonna go to the real business owner who understands how margin needs to work. Whereas you're sitting here dealing with fires all day because of people haggling over $50, the best way to sell is having the full conviction that your product is the best. And you can't say your product's the best if you're trying to do it on margin and you don't have the money to reinvest in good people. You can't do it. The one thing that limits every business is the entrepreneur. Not the opportunity, not the business vehicle, not anything else, it's the entrepreneur. Everything stems from them. There's 3 things. You've got the skills of the entrepreneur, the character traits of the entrepreneur, and then you have what I would call the beliefs of the entrepreneur. What do they believe about the world to be true? And what do they believe about the world to be true that isn't?
We have so many of these belief statements that like quote society or things that we inherit, but we just choose to say that this is how life is.
Which you've got the ladder of success. Skills on one side, beliefs on the other side, and then you've got character traits in the middle as the rungs. You might have a tremendous amount of skills and great character, but your beliefs are limited. If all of a sudden you see somebody have an overnight success, it's usually because they had 2 of the 3 already very, very high level, but they were missing some huge part. Some belief was wrong. So for example, for me, when I went from 2 million to 7 to just under 30 in a matter of like 3 years, I believed things that were true about the world that weren't. And I didn't know that licensing was a model. I didn't know I could expand in that way. And in so doing, I was able to explode because I got into the right vehicle. The vehicle wasn't the limiter. It was me and my beliefs about it. And then as soon as I changed the way I saw the world, I was able to get into a much better vehicle and explode from there. And so I think that the amount of time that elapses between wanting to figure something out and doing something, the more advanced you get, shortens. I remember it took me 3 years to figure out how to build a landing page, and the day I decided to do it, it took me 4 hours. So it took me 3 years and then 4 hours to actually figure it out because I was avoiding the feeling of sucking. And so if you can confront sucking faster and just get over that idea that sucking is a bad thing, then I think you compress the time between you and the skills you want. The best way to break a belief is to see someone doing what you thought was not real and then have it happen. A lot of people have heard of the Roger Bannister story, first man to break a 4-minute mile, and then the next year, 28 people or whatever it was broke the 4-minute mile. And I remember there was a moment where I was in a mastermind and there was a guy making, I think $350,000 a month. And he got up there and he sounded like an idiot. And Layla and I looked at each other afterwards and we're like, if he can do it, we can do it.
Number 1 is, what problem are we solving? A lot of times you realize that you're not solving a problem at all, which means you probably don't need to do it. This is especially true the lower in the organization it goes, because people who are lower down in the org tend to not be as connected to the overarching picture of the company. Simple example, most goals have to be chunked up to one of three things. Number one, they're going to help us get more customers. Number two is that it's going to help us make customers worth more. And number three, it's going to increase the enterprise value of the company. If you can't articulate why the goal is going to do that, then you shouldn't do it. So number one, pick what problem you're actually trying to solve. Simple example, if IT decreases the page load times on all of our sites, we will get more leads. We get more leads, we get more customers, etc. If IT improves the sign-on process for customers to have access to something, that will mean we have fewer customers churn, which means we will make customers more valuable. If you can't tie how your department and the function that you have either gets us more customers, makes them worth more, increases the enterprise value of the business, means you don't understand your job. And if you're the entrepreneur or the head of the department, you don't know how you're actually providing value to the business. Breaking that down is the first and most important part of goal setting. If this process actually makes you think, then it means you're doing it right. It takes a lot of 0 to 1, a lot of shiny object, a lot of new things, a lot of trial and error, a lot of iterate until something clicks in the beginning. But big businesses often grow by a series of 1% improvements. 1%, 1%, 1%. Because you've seen the Excel math when you're like, well, if I only got 10% more people to opt in, and I got 15% more people to schedule, and I got 20% more people to show, and I closed one from 25% to 35%. You add all this together, and all of a sudden, you tripled the business. And the thing is that everyone gets so distracted with like I'm gonna reinvent the wheel, rather than just making the wheel a little smoother so it runs faster. And so a lot of times, especially in the 5, 10, 15, $20 million top line range, that's some of the systems we have to put in place, because that's how the big boys play. They beat you because they actually can do 100 tiny increments. I think Gym Launch grew 40% last year, and we did nothing new. All we did was do everything we were currently doing a little bit better. If you do that year after year after year, you become very hard to beat, because people will see your marketing on the outside. They'll try and copy your pages, they'll try and copy your emails, and one, it won't be you, so it won't matter because it's not your story. But they don't know all the internal standard operating procedures, the internal metrics that you guys are tracking that actually create the growth in the company. And a lot of times in the early business, just measuring metrics may be the important goal for the quarter so that you can then improve it. Let's say you're a videographer and a marketing department, right? Each of these goals should start from the top down. So if we say these are our 5 goals as a company, the department heads are going to probably have multiple activities to make the first hypothesis true or not. I like to have everybody as far down in the organization do this, because it actually causes you to think about why you do what you do. A lot of times employees lose motivation because they don't know how what they do every day ties into the bigger picture of how the company grows and makes more money. With a videographer, for example, they're like, well, what do I do? Like, what problem am I solving? The problem is get more customers. They might not think about it that way, but that's the goal. Well, my hypothesis is either we might say it's a volume thing, which is if I double the amount of shorts I make, then we will get more traffic to our website from our organic content. And at the end of the quarter, did you make twice as many shorts? Okay, green, fantastic. Did that result in more link clicks on the site? Oh, it didn't. Huh, interesting. I wonder what would do it. Okay, we need to create more content that's more story-based. Great, go back to the beginning. If we create more story-based content, we will get more link clicks to website. That's why goal setting, if done right, should take work, because it makes you think, why am I even doing what I'm doing? And if you don't take like a day for a whole quarter to think, why am I even bothering to do this? Then why are you bothering to do it without understanding what you're trying to improve? And the thing is if you think this way as a teammate or an entrepreneur, I promise you, you will be so much more valuable to your company if you can even think like a business owner. And this is how a good business owner should think. And if you can approach whoever runs your company with this model, you may find that they will see you differently, because they're like, wow, Timmy, who's making these video clips, is actually thinking about what I care about, which is how I'm gonna get more customers. Whatever the second part of the statement is. If you know what you're actually trying to accomplish in the business, then it makes it a lot easier. What problem are we solving? What's our hypothesis? What are we gonna do? What do we think is gonna happen? Did we do it? Did it happen? That's it. And so that has been the simplest goal setting framework that we've used. We use this across all portfolio companies. That's what we do across everything. And it's been the simplest thing that I've seen. I haven't seen it anywhere else. It's worked for us, and maybe it'll work for you. The biggest issue that I've had with friendships in general is that people project what they believe friendships should look like in their minds onto our relationship. For me, I am transactional. This is gonna probably piss a lot of people off. The pros of this relationship should outweigh the cons. And if people are like, I can't believe you'd say that, we probably wouldn't be friends, and that's okay. You'll probably be friends with people who don't have that definition. But for me, that means that like my life is better off with you in it. You help me achieve my goal. You root for me along the way. If you think about everything you do as an investor, you invest time and energy into a relationship with the hopes of getting some sort of positive return. You spend that time no matter what. And the people who build the best relationships, the best networks, are the ones who invest in relationships that yield the highest returns. One of the hardest things about pursuing your dreams and pursuing your goals is that a lot of the people that are in your life right now will not support the future version of you that you need to become in order to accomplish those goals. People don't actually want the best for you. They want the version of you that best serves them. Now, the closer they are to you in terms of long-term alignment, the more likely those two versions of you will intersect, which is often, not always, why family and your spouse should hopefully be the most aligned with you, because long-term, their best interest is often aligned with your best interest.
Yo, thank you very much for watching this video until this very moment. I highly appreciate it. So if you enjoyed it, hit the like button and follow my YouTube channel, because I already work on the next video like this. See you soon, guys. Thank you very much.
You are poor because you're not doing the activities that make you rich. Don't be broke.